At 3 p.m., Rose Jenkins, the new hire who had barely been here a few days, suddenly tagged me in the company group chat, with a few hundred people in it. "Hi, can you stop hammering your keyboard? The noise is making my stomach hurt. The baby I'm carrying is sleeping. If you shake it into a concussion, I swear I'll make your whole family pay for it." I rushed to explain. I was racing to finish a proposal that was due soon, and I was using a silent keyboard. She wouldn't believe me no matter what I said. I kept my patience and explained it over and over. To avoid any more trouble, I even asked if I could move out to the hallway to work. What I didn't expect was that a week later, she would storm into the break room with a kettle of freshly boiled water and dump it straight over my head. I collapsed in a pool of scalding water, my skin blistering and tearing open. She kept screaming as if she had lost her mind and smashed my head with her high heels over and over. "It's all your fault I lost the baby. Your keyboard noise shook my son to death." My vision blurred. By the time everything went black, I still couldn't understand how a silent keyboard could possibly kill someone. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day she first went off on me in the group chat. This time, faced with the same insults, I didn't back down. I went straight into the chat and fired back. "Stop pretending you're pregnant. You've got more going on down there than your dad does." The moment my message hit the chat, the group, that had been buzzing with hundreds of people discussing work, went dead silent. A few seconds later, Rose Jenkins' messages exploded across the screen. "Stella, what the hell are you talking about? I'm 3 months pregnant. Got the ultrasound right here. How dare you make stuff up about me? Everyone come look. Stella can't have kids herself, so she can't stand seeing anyone else pregnant. At HR, at Philip. Look, get the kind of person you hired. I'm calling police. This is defamation. This is harassment." She started making a scene, and people jumped in to back her up. Every finger pointed straight at me. Paisley Gill from the design department wrote, "Stella, that's way too far. How can you say something like that to a pregnant woman? That's seriously messed up." Someone else tried to calm Rose down. "Rose, take it easy. Don't get upset, for the baby's sake." Stella was just joking, but Rose wasn't letting it go. "Joking? Who jokes like that? We're not even that close. She's just jealous. I'm married well, and I'm carrying my husband's baby. My pregnancy is already unstable. The doctor told me over and over that I need to be careful. And this woman's out here, pounding her keyboard like a construction drill. If anything happens to my baby, she's the first one I'm coming after." People from other departments started chiming in, too. "Exactly. She already said she's not feeling well. Can't you keep it down a little? It's already afternoon. Can't your proposal wait until tomorrow? Why are you picking on a pregnant woman?" Reading all of that, I actually laughed. In my last life, this was exactly how they cornered me by step, until there was nowhere left to go. I explained again and again that I was using a silent keyboard. I even carried my laptop out into the hallway, just so I wouldn't bother her. And what did I get in return? A kettle of boiling water poured over me from head to toe. By the time I died, my skin had been burned raw. My skull cracked under the heel of her shoe. The last thing I saw in this world was Rose's twisted, hysterical face. I closed my eyes. I could still feel the searing heat of that water, as if it had burned itself into my soul. Anger and hatred surged in my chest, crashing into each other. Rose kept tagging me in the chat, as if she had gone completely off the rails. "What? Cat got your tongue? Why aren't you saying anything now? Feeling guilty? Did you do it on purpose? You just don't want me to have a good life, right? I finally got pregnant, and you had to ruin it, didn't you? If anything happens to my baby, can you afford to pay for it? Are you going to pay with your life?" I stared at her text, and whatever restraint I had left finally snapped. I hit record and sent a voice message into the group, my tone cold and steady. "Pay with my life. Pay you back for what? The crap you're carrying? Fine. Come over right now. If you've got the nerve to drop your pants in front of the whole company, I'll jump off this building on the spot and pay for your so-called son with my life." The voice message I sent blew up the entire office. The group chat went dead silent for a full minute. Then a commotion broke out in my direction. I looked up and saw Rose clutching her stomach, being helped along by a few women from the office. Her eyes were red, like she had been crying the whole way over. "Stella." Her voice came out sharp and shaky, as if she had been wronged in the worst way possible. "How can you be this cruel? What did I ever do to you? Why are you humiliating me like this? I'm carrying a boy. My family's only ever had one son in each generation. You really can't stand the thought of him being born?" The women around her immediately jumped in. "Stella, what's wrong with you? She just started here, and you're already bullying her? Seriously? What about when you have kids someday? Would you want someone talking about your child like that? Picking on an unborn baby? Aren't you scared of karma?" Rose bent over like she was about to throw up, playing it up perfectly. Tears came the second she wanted them to. She leaned weakly against someone beside her. "I'll kill you. You ruined my reputation. I'll kill you." Her voice was shrill, grating against my ears, dragging old memories back up with it. Just thinking about how this cross-dressing maniac had tortured me to death in my last life made my whole body shake. And when Rose said she was going to kill me, something inside me snapped, shot to my feet, shoved the women around her aside, and grabbed her by the collar. "Kill me. You already did that once. Go on, keep acting. Where's your bump? Where's the ultrasound? Show it to me." Rose froze, clearly thrown off by my tone. After a couple of seconds, she lunged at my face, fingers clawing. I twisted out of the way and stuck my foot out. Rose went down hard, face first. The memory of that boiling water pouring over my head came rushing back, the pain so vivid that it made my vision flash. My anger surged. I stomped down on her back and grabbed a fistful of that smooth wig, slamming her head toward the floor. "Keep pretending. Go on. Let's see what you really are." Pinned under my foot, she could only scream high and wild. "Help. Someone help. Stella's lost it. She's trying to kill me. My baby." Her shrieking pulled more people over. Hands grabbed at me from all sides, dragging us apart. Two guys pinned my arms before I could even catch my breath. It had only been half an hour since I came back. Half an hour ago, I had died at the hands of this lunatic right in front of me. How the hell was I supposed to stay calm? But once they pulled me away, everyone started pointing fingers at me instead. "Have you lost your mind? You started this, and now you're hitting a pregnant woman? I can't believe someone like you works here. That's seriously messed up. I already called security. If you try anything again, we're calling the police." Without me holding her down, Rose got bold again. They helped her up. She clutched her stomach and pointed at me, crying like she had been wronged. "Did you all see that? She's jealous of me. She wants my baby dead." She staggered toward me and raised her hand, aiming for my face. I tried to fight back, but the guys holding me tightened their grip. "You still want to swing back? Just stay still." When Rose saw that I couldn't move, her face twisted into a smug, ugly grin. Her words got harsher and harsher. "You can't even have kids. You should just die." Already the others piled on, saying I had no empathy. Paisley stood there comforting Rose, then shot me a cold look. "Don't you have any sense of decency? How could you push a pregnant woman this far over a proposal? What were you even thinking? She's pregnant and still coming into work every day. That's not easy. If you keep this up and something happens to her, are you going to take responsibility?" I struggled against their grip and raised my voice. "How many times do I have to say it? I'm using a silent keyboard. How exactly am I bothering her? Through quantum vibrations? Besides, she says she's pregnant. But has anyone here actually seen her? Checkup reports. Has anyone seen her husband pick her up?" My words made a few people hesitate. I could see the doubt creeping into their faces. Rose immediately dug into her bag and pulled out a wrinkled sheet of paper. "This is my ultrasound. It clearly says I'm 12 weeks pregnant." I let out a short, cold laugh. "Funny. A minute ago you said my typing sounded like construction work, and it was hurting your belly. Now you're yelling and crying this loud, and your precious son's just fine." Everyone paused. Paisley frowned, murmuring under her breath, "That's true. When I was pregnant, I couldn't even handle loud noises, let alone something like this. How is her baby this tough?" Right then, security rushed over, taking in the tense scene. Everyone calmed down. "Let's talk this out." Rose, who had been acting bold just moments ago, suddenly covered her mouth and gagged. After a long moment, she spoke weakly. "My stomach hurts. Must be from when she shoved me. Something's wrong with the baby. I need to go to the hospital. If I lose my child, Stella, I won't let you off even after I'm." There was no way I was letting her get off that easily. "Great. Let's go to the hospital. I'll go with you. And while we're at it, I'll get you checked in the men's department, too. Might as well take a look at your prostate." Rose instantly lost it, pointing at me and screaming, "You're insane. You're making things up. I'm going to sue you for defamation." I turned to everyone else. "You all heard that, right? One hospital visit and we'll know the truth. If she is really pregnant, I'll apologize in front of everyone. I'll cover every cent of the medical bills." Then I looked straight at Rose. "You dare to go?" I grabbed her arm and started pulling her toward the door. "Come on, let's go now. Let the whole company see what you're really carrying." All eyes were on her, waiting. Rose's face kept shifting, pale one second, flushed the next. I never imagined that the girl she used to push around so easily would come back like this. All sharp edges and no fear. She clung to the desk, refusing to move. Then suddenly, as if something clicked, she let out a loud cry and dropped straight to the floor. A pool of blood spread quickly beneath her. She reached out hand, trembling as she pointed at me. Her eyes filled with venom. My baby. You killed my baby. An ambulance rushed her away, and the whole office fell into chaos. Hastily pointed at me, shaking with anger. Are you happy now? You caused her to lose her child. Another coworker had already dialed the police. Hello? Yes. We have someone here who assaulted a pregnant woman and caused a miscarriage. I stood there beside the spreading blood, watching everything with a cold, steady gaze. That wasn't blood. It was red ink. That liar really had planned this all out. It didn't take long for the police to arrive. Rose had already been taken to the hospital for emergency treatment, and as the prime suspect, I was brought in for questioning. The office security footage had captured everything clearly. From the message I sent in the group chat, to Rose showing up at my desk with the crowd, to me knocking her down, and finally to her so-called miscarriage. Every piece of evidence was stacked against me. Inside the interrogation room, the officer's face was hard and unreadable. Miss Long, why did you use that much force on a pregnant woman? Just because she asked you to? Keep it down? Do you understand that what you did qualifies as intentional assault? I met his eyes, calm and steady. I didn't. First, I never intended to hurt her. Second, she's not pregnant. She's a man. The officer frowned. We've already confirmed with the hospital. The injured party is Rose Jenkins, female, 12 weeks pregnant. Due to severe impact, the pregnancy was lost. What else do you have to say? I let out a small laugh. The hospital? Which doctor ran that exam? Bring them here. Let's talk face to face. I've said it already. Rose is a man. There's no fetus in there. Just a silicone implant and a bag of red ink. That made them pause. I probably hadn't seen a suspect this stubborn before. One of the male officers slammed his hand on the table. You still won't admit what you did. The surveillance footage, your coworker's statements, the hospital report, everything points to you. You think making things up will get you out of this? I didn't look away. I didn't do anything wrong. Why would I need to get out of anything? I want to see Rose. I'll prove it in front of you. I'll prove she's a man. If I can't, I'll take full responsibility. No arguments. Certainty made them hesitate. After a few minutes of quiet discussion, they decided to take me to the hospital for a face-to-face. When we got there, Rose was lying in a hospital bed. She was pale and hooked up to N4, looking weak enough to fall apart. Paisley and a few others were standing guard beside her. The second they saw me, they rushed over like I was something dangerous. You've got some nerve showing up here. You killed her baby. Paisley was practically shouting in my face. I ignored her and walked straight to the bed, looking down at Rose. Drop the act. You're overdoing it. The moment she saw me, her whole body jerked. She shrank back, eyes wide with fear. Don't come near me. You monster. What more do you want? I've already killed my baby. She cried like she was breaking apart, loud enough to draw everyone's attention in the room. Her eyes were full of panic as she grabbed Paisley's arm, voice trembling. Paisley, please make her leave, okay? I'm scared when I see her. My baby. My poor baby. The others chimed in right away. Bella, are you really not going to stop until you drive her to death? Yeah. What's the point of this? That was a life. I waited until the officers were actually watching me, then let out a cold. A life? Fine. Then let's figure out whose life that really was. Second I said that, Rose snapped. That's nonsense. My child died because of you. You're a killer. He was 3 months old. I could feel him moving inside me every day. Give me my child back. After shouting, she broke down into sobs again, the kind that made everyone around her soften. But this couldn't keep going. Just as Paisley stepped forward to comfort her again, I moved. I stepped up to the bed and yanked the blanket off. The sudden rush of cold air made Rose flinch, her hands instinctively flying down to cover her crotch rather than the supposedly traumatized stomach she had been weeping over. What are you doing? Paisley shrieked, lunging forward to push me away. Are you out of your mind? She just lost a baby. I sidestepped Paisley's frantic grasp, my eyes locked on the hospital bed. The harsh fluorescent lights of the room illuminated every detail. I didn't waste a single second arguing. I reached out, my fingers curling into the collar of Rose's oversized, loose-fitting hospital gown, and pulled hard. The cheap fabric tore down the middle with a sharp, sickening rip. The room froze. The shrieks, the cries, the police officers stepping forward to restrain me. Everything hit a dead, breathless wall of silence. There was no blood. There were no bandages. There wasn't even the soft, swollen curve of a 3-month pregnancy. Instead, secured tightly to Rose's pale, flat, definitively male torso was a high-grade silicone belly, strapped down with thick layers of medical tape. Beneath the edge of the prosthetic, a plastic 4-style tube was taped to the skin, leading down to a concealed bladder pouch strapped to the inner thigh. Red fluid, the exact shade of the blood that had pooled on the office floor, was still leaking sluggishly from a ruptured seam in the plastic bag. Look closely. I said, my voice eerily calm in the dead silent room. I reached out and ripped the silicone prosthetic clean off his stomach. The tearing of the adhesive tape sounded like a gunshot. Rose, no. The man sitting in the bed let out a deep, guttural yell that belonged nowhere near a woman's vocal cords. It was a harsh, raspy, distinctly male bark of pain. He scrambled backward against the headboard, crossing his arms over his chest, his face pale with a terror that was finally, genuinely real. As he thrashed, his elbow caught the edge of his perfectly styled, flowing brunette hair. The wig shifted, exposing the short, dark, sweaty buzz cut underneath, along with the thick, uneven line of a heavily contoured jaw hiding a shaved Adam's apple. Paisley's mouth dropped open. She looked from the torn silicone belly in my hand to the leaking pouch of red ink, and finally, to the man cowering against the pillows. The color drained from her face so fast, she looked like a corpse. What? The male police officer who had interrogated me stared at the bed, completely stunned. He blinked, shaking his head as if trying to clear a hallucination. What the hell is this? This, I threw the heavy, sweat-stained silicone prosthetic onto the floor at the officer's feet, is your grieving mother. And that, I pointed to the red puddle staining the hospital sheets, is standard stage blood. Care to run a DNA test on it? The man on the bed realized the gig was up. The high-pitched, fragile tone he had weaponized all afternoon vanished. You crazy bitch, he snarled, his voice dropping an entire octave into a rough, menacing baritone. He lunged at me, his manicured hands curling into fists, aiming straight for my throat. He was fast, but the police were faster. The two officers who had brought me in tackled him against the mattress. He thrashed wildly, screaming profanities, his strength easily requiring both cops to pin his arms behind his back. The wig tumbled completely off his head, rolling across the sterile linoleum floor like a dead animal. Let go of me. I'll kill you. I'll boil you alive, he roared, spit flying from his lips, his eyes locked onto mine with a manic, murderous hatred. The moment he said the word boil, a phantom heat seared across my scalp. My skin remembered the blistering agony of my past life, the sound of my own skull cracking beneath his heel. I stood my ground, staring down at him as the officers snapped handcuffs around his thick wrists. Boil me? I tilted my head, smiling coldly. You're going to have a hard time finding a kettle in a maximum security prison. The door to the hospital room swung open. A man in a white doctor's coat walked in, holding a clipboard and looking incredibly bored. All right, Miss Jenkins, the ultrasound results are... He stopped dead. He saw the police officers pinning a struggling man to the bed. He saw the ripped dress, the stage blood, the silicone belly on the floor. The doctor's face turned the color of ash. He took one step back toward the hallway, entirely prepared to bolt. Hold it right there, the second officer barked, pointing a sharp finger at the doctor. Are you the attending physician who confirmed the miscarriage? I. The doctor stammered, his eyes darting frantically to the exit. He's the one who signed a report stating Rose Jenkins was 12 weeks pregnant. I interjected smoothly, pulling my phone from my pocket. Officer, I believe you just stumbled onto a highly organized medical fraud ring. Falsifying medical records, extortion, and framing an innocent person for a felony. The doctor dropped the clipboard. It clattered loudly against the floor. He raised his hands in surrender before the police even touched him. The man in the bed, who I would later learn was named Ross Carter, threw his head back and laughed, a dark, unhinged sound that echoed off the tiled walls. You think you're so smart, Stella. You think you won. This company was going to pay me $500,000 in a settlement for a workplace-induced miscarriage. It was foolproof. Foolproof, I repeated, walking slowly toward the bed. I leaned in close, ensuring he saw the absolute lack of fear in my eyes. Except you picked the wrong target. I don't play the victim, Ross. And I certainly don't let dead men walk over me twice. He glared at me, confused by the twice comment, but the police yanked him up by the arms before he could respond. Ross Carter, or whoever you are, you're under arrest, the lead officer growled, shoving him toward the door. Read him his rights. And get someone to arrest Dr. Quack over there. As they hauled Ross out of the room, he continued to scream my name, the sound fading down the hospital corridor. The attending doctor was handcuffed and escorted out right behind him, weeping silently. Suddenly, the room was very quiet. I turned around. Paisley and the 3 other coworkers who had followed the ambulance were huddled near the window, practically trembling. The righteous indignation that had fueled them back at the office had completely evaporated, replaced by a suffocating, humiliating reality. Paisley looked at the fake belly on the floor, then at me. Her lips trembled. Stella, oh my God. Oh my God, I mocked softly, stepping toward her. What happened to you're a monster, Stella? What happened to she's a grieving mother? Weren't you just telling me how hard it is to be a pregnant woman in the workplace? I didn't know. Paisley burst into tears, covering her face. He looked so real. He had the ultrasound. How were we supposed to know he was a man wearing a prosthetic? I was just trying to protect a baby. You weren't trying to protect anyone, I said, my voice sharp enough to cut glass. You were just desperate to feel morally superior. You didn't care about the truth. You didn't care that I told you repeatedly that my keyboard was silent. You just wanted an excuse to dogpile on the new hire so you could play the hero. Paisley sobbed harder, reaching a hand out toward me. Stella, please, I'm so sorry. I'll tell HR everything. I'll stand up for you. I swatted her hand away without a second thought. Don't touch me. And don't bother playing my savior now. You're the one who called the police and accused me of murder. If I hadn't forced him into this hospital room, I would be sitting in a jail cell right now, facing a decade in prison, all because of your eager little testimony. The other coworkers looked down at their shoes, their faces flushed with shame. Tomorrow, I said, walking toward the door, I expect public apologies in the same group chat where you all tried to ruin my life. If I don't see them by 9 a.m., I'm suing every single one of you for defamation. I didn't wait for their responses. I walked out of the hospital, stepping into the cool evening air. For the first time since waking up in this timeline, I took a deep, steadying breath. My scalp didn't burn. My bones weren't broken. I was alive, and the monster who had ripped my future away from me was currently sitting in the back of a squad car. But my vengeance wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. Ross Carter had admitted his plan during his little villainous breakdown. This company was going to pay me $500,000 in a settlement. A man doesn't just walk into a massive corporate firm, secure a job disguised as a pregnant woman, and set up a complex extortion scheme without inside help. Someone had to bypass his background check. Someone had to approve his medical files. Someone had to fast-track his hiring. Philip, the head of HR. In my past life, Philip was the one who had immediately sided with Rose. He was the one who drafted my termination papers before the boiling water incident even happened, citing workplace hostility. He had fueled the fire. The next morning, I arrived at the office early. The atmosphere was completely different. The moment I stepped off the elevator, the usual bustling chatter died down. People stared at me with a mix of awe and terror. The news of yesterday's dramatic arrest at the hospital had clearly spread like wildfire. I didn't look at any of them. I walked straight past my desk, past the break room where I had been murdered in another life, and headed directly for the executive suites. I kicked open the glass door to the HR department without knocking. Philip was frantically stuffing folders into a leather briefcase. His face was slick with sweat, his tie loosened. When he saw me standing in the doorway, he froze like a deer in headlights. Stella, he squeaked, his voice cracking. He tried to force a professional smile, but it looked more like a grimace. What a terrible ordeal yesterday. Truly shocking. I was just gathering the necessary paperwork to officially terminate Miss Jenkins, or, well, Mr. Carter. Management is horrified. Management might be horrified, I said, stepping into his office and locking the door behind me. But you're just packing. I have a meeting across town, he lied smoothly, though his hands were shaking as he snapped the briefcase shut. Now, if you'll excuse me, I really must be going. And don't worry, Stella. The company will be offering you a month of paid leave to recover from the emotional distress. I don't want paid leave, I interrupted, leaning casually against his mahogany desk. I want to know how much of the settlement you were supposed to get. Philip flinched. I have no idea what you're talking about. Ross Carter, I said, tapping my fingers on the desk. A known con artist. He specifically targeted companies with strict workplace harassment policies. The scam is simple. Get hired, fake a pregnancy, instigate a conflict with a coworker, fake a stress-induced miscarriage, and threaten to sue the company for creating a hostile work environment. To avoid bad PR, the company settles out of court for a massive sum. Philip swallowed hard. That's a wild conspiracy theory. Is it? I smiled, pulling a sleek USB drive from my pocket and setting it on the desk between us. Last night, I did a little digging. Turns out, my brother works in corporate cybersecurity. It didn't take him long to bypass your flimsy firewall. We found the emails, Philip. The ones between your private account and a Dr. Vance at the hospital. The ones detailing how you bypassed Ross's social security check. Philip's legs gave out. He collapsed heavily into his ergonomic office chair, staring at the USB drive like it was a live grenade. A 60-40 split, wasn't it? I continued mercilessly. Ross gets 60% of the $500,000 settlement for doing the heavy lifting, and you get 40% for opening the back door and steering the company into a quiet payoff. You were going to use me as the scapegoat. I was the sacrificial lamb, so you could buy your new boat. Stella, please, Philip whispered, all the arrogance draining from him. He clasped his hands together on the desk. I was in debt. You don't understand the gambling, it got out of hand. Those people were going to break my legs. I just needed one big payout. Ross approached me. He said nobody would get hurt. Just a firing, some bad PR, and then we walk away rich. Nobody would get hurt? I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. I remembered the sensation of my skin peeling from my skull. I remembered the unadulterated madness in Ross's eyes. Ross Carter is a psychopath. He wasn't just going to get me fired. He was going to destroy me. I didn't know. Philip pleaded, tears welling in his eyes. I'll give you whatever you want. Money? A promotion? I can make you a senior director by tomorrow. Just give me the drive. Please. I looked down at the pathetic, sniveling man. In my previous life, this man had stood by and watched me burn. I don't negotiate with trash, I said coldly. Right on cue, the heavy glass door of the office rattled. Someone tried the handle, found it locked, and knocked heavily. Police. Open up. Philip let out a whimper, burying his face in his hands. I reached over, unlocked the door, and stepped aside as the same two detectives from yesterday walked in, flashing their badges. Philip Hayes, the lead detective said, pulling a pair of cuffs from his belt. You're under arrest for corporate fraud, conspiracy to commit extortion, and accessory to aggravated assault. As they hauled Philip out of the office, he didn't even fight. He looked utterly broken. I walked out behind them, stepping into the main floor of the office. Every single employee was standing at their desks, watching the head of HR get dragged out in handcuffs. The silence was absolute. I walked slowly back to my desk. Paisley was sitting in her cubicle next to mine. When I looked at her, she flinched, shrinking down into her chair as if trying to make herself invisible. I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and rested my fingers on my silent keyboard. The sound of my typing was practically non-existent. Soft, barely their taps. Paisley, I said without looking away from my screen. She jumped. Why yes, Stella? Did you all post the apologies in the group chat? Yes, she answered quickly, her voice trembling. At 8 a.m. We all did. A public apology, admitting we were wrong, just like you asked. Good. I replied calmly. The months that followed were a blur of court dates and legal proceedings. I attended every single trial session. I sat in the front row, wearing pristine, tailored suits, watching as Ross Carter's entire life was dismantled. During the trial, the depth of Ross's depravity came to light. The prosecution revealed he had pulled this scam 3 times before at different companies, but he had never faced someone who fought back. They found a history of violent outbursts, restraining orders, and assault charges buried under aliases. When he took the stand, he couldn't keep the mask on. The defense tried to paint him as mentally ill, a victim of extreme body dysmorphia and delusions. But when the prosecutor played the audio of his voice from the hospital, "I'll boil you alive," the jury's faces hardened. In my past life, those words were a promise he kept. In this life, they were the nail in his coffin. On the day of the verdict, the courtroom was packed. Ross stood beside his lawyer, wearing an orange jumpsuit, looking haggard. The luxurious wig and designer makeup were gone, leaving only a hollow, bitter man with dark circles under his eyes. On the counts of felony fraud, extortion, and aggravated assault, the judge read, his voice echoing off the wood panel walls, "We find the defendant, Ross Carter, guilty." Ross slammed his fists onto the table. "This is a setup. She set me up," he screamed, pointing a shaking finger at me in the gallery. The bailiffs rushed him, dragging him backward as he kicked and thrashed. "You're dead, Stella. You hear me? I'll kill you." I stood up slowly, smoothing the wrinkles from my skirt. I walked to the wooden partition dividing the gallery from the court floor. I looked him dead in the eyes, letting a slow, chilling smile spread across my face. "No, Ross," I said softly, though the acoustics of the room carried my voice perfectly to his ears. "I'm alive, and you're nothing." He screamed in raw, impotent rage as they dragged him through the heavy wooden doors, locking him away for what would be a 15-year sentence. I walked out of the courthouse and into the bright afternoon sun. The air smelled like rain and hot asphalt. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was an email from the CEO of my company. With Philip gone, and the massive scandal narrowly averted thanks to my quick thinking and evidence gathering, corporate had decided to restructure. They were offering me Philip's old job as head of HR, along with a salary that would make my head spin, accompanied by a heavy implication that this was hush money to ensure I didn't sue the company for hiring a psychopath. I read the email twice. Then I hit reply. "Thank you for the offer. However, I am submitting my immediate resignation. My legal team will be in contact regarding my severance package and the terms of my non-disclosure agreement. Have a wonderful day." I hit send. I didn't need their hush money, and I certainly wasn't going to spend the rest of my life working alongside spineless cowards like Paisley, who would turn on me the second the wind blew in a different direction. With the massive settlement I was about to extract from the company to keep my mouth shut about their criminally negligent hiring practices, I was going to start my own firm. I slipped my phone back into my pocket, took a deep breath, and walked down the courthouse steps. My past life had ended in a puddle of boiling water and blood. This life, however, was just beginning. And I wasn't going to let anyone make a single sound to ruin it.